Hello, fellow authors. My name is Bill Platt, and today I have a very important topic I'd like to talk to you about, and that is the fact that you owe it to the world to let them know that your book exists and why they would want to read your book. What happens is a lot of us, we spend months or years laboring, a real labor of love to create a book that we know that people will want to read. We have a story to tell and people will want to read our story. The problem is, it's hard to get people to even pay attention to the fact that we have written a book in the first place. And what all it comes down to is people are selfish. They don't care that you've written a book. You're just some guy standing on the street corner, pawning adverts on them, and they don't care. There's no reason for them to care. They don't know you. They don't know your writing style. They don't know your talent. They don't know your message. They don't know any reason why they should pay attention to you and the book that you have written. And so our challenge as authors is to let them know first that our book exists and why they should care and why they should want to read our books. So for us, when we get started, sometimes some authors will go out and tell their friends and their family, and not all their friends or family are going to be hot to buy a copy of their book. And the embarrassing thing is if you go and tell your friends and family and everybody buy, and you tell 14 people and one person buys the book, you know somebody was looking out for you. Chances are it was your mother, but nobody else bought a copy of your book, so you don't know exactly who bought the copy of the book until they mention something to you about it. And then the worst case scenario is nobody buys your book. And how much of a letdown that is to go out and tell your friends and your family that you've written a book and nobody buys a copy. That just tears you up from inside. But the thing of it is, you've made the same mistake with your family that you're making with the public. You have told them that you've written a book, but you've not given them any reason to want to read that book. Yeah, the reason should be that you love me and you support me and you're willing to help me out by buying my book, but people are selfish. They don't care. They don't care that you've written a book. They don't care because you're just somebody trying to sell them something. And most people don't like to be sold to. They don't like to be sold to, but they love to buy. So we have to reverse that scenario where I'm not telling you to go buy my book, but I'm telling you about my book and you're deciding that you want to make a purchase. So we have to reverse the table on it and make it where they can come to us to buy our book instead of us going to them to sell our book. And so what we have to do is first we have to let people know we have a book. But we understand at that point they don't care that we've written a book. We haven't explained to them why they would want to read our book yet. So we have to go a little bit further than just saying I've written a book. Then we have to go into the interest phase of it. We've got their attention, now they're listening, now we need to create interest in the story that we've told. I've written a vampire romance where the vampire is in love with a human woman and her dad is intent to make sure that relationship is never consummated, so it's a battle between the vampire and a human's father. So that's one way to drum up the interest in the book because you've laid out the genre of the story you've told and you've given some background to the story itself. And the same thing when you're doing nonfiction. People have problems and those problems cause them pain. And your book seeks to offer them a solution to their problem so they can eliminate the pain. So that's the nonfiction side of it. Both sides are very important. Both sides rely on the emotional element, the emotional desire to see something through to conclusion. The desire on the fiction side to escape into this fantasy world and enjoy 2 or 3 hours away from real life. And on the nonfiction side, it's like I've got a problem. That problem is causing me pain, and I want to fix it. So both ways we got to create the interest first for them to pay attention. Then we got to create the desire to want to read the story, and that's where we come up with some of our other techniques that we use to tell people about our story. Because until somebody feels an emotional reaction to your story, nobody's going to buy your book, and nor are they going to care that you've written a book. Anne Rice, she says focus on the pain. She says focus on the pain when you're telling your story, and focus on the pain when you're explaining your story. And the same thing goes with nonfiction. We focus on the pain that the problem has caused that person, and the solution to eliminate that pain. On both sides, we have a pain scenario. The reader has to be touched at an emotional level in order for them to want to buy your book. So we have to touch them on that emotional level. And we do that through our storytelling. Inside your book, you've told a story that introduces them to the pain of the characters, be it if it's fiction. Or we've told them a story that focuses on the pain of the reader if it's nonfiction. But that pain is something that is very emotional to the reader. And if we can tap into that emotion, people will want to buy our books. The fact is, you owe it to the world to first let them know that you've written a book, and two, to let them know why they will want to read your book. Because all the great classic books in the world that's ever been written throughout the history of time, no one wanted to read it until they understood why they wanted to read it. Nobody, they saw it on a shelf at the bookstore, but they didn't want it because it's just a book on a shelf. Then they picked up that book and they looked at the back cover. And then they looked at the inside flaps. And in that pitch for the book, which is the same thing that you would find on the Amazon website, inside that pitch on the book, something transpired. They went from getting their attention to creating some interest in the story, and then creating a desire to read the story. And without that desire, no money changes hands. And no one reads your book. And I make the assumption that you've written a great book. I really do. Because you wouldn't be listening to me if you didn't write a great book. Yeah, sure, some people are listening just because they want to make some bucks. But this applies to both the artist and the person trying to make money. If you want to sell your book, you have to give people real value. But once you've written that book that does deliver on great value, you have to first let the public know that your book exists, and then you have to demonstrate to them why they will want to read your book. Until you do that, nobody's buying your book. And this can be done in social media, it can be done on your book sales page, it can be done on your book jacket, wherever you have the opportunity to talk to a potential reader. You get their attention first, then you generate some interest in the book, and then you go for the kill shot, where you're going to create desire for them to go ahead and finish reading your book. And with a nonfiction book, it's the problem, pain, solution. With a fiction book, it's the pain. Well, there's a couple things with a fiction book. One, they have to empathize with your characters. And two, they have to feel the pain of your characters. And then three, they have to like your character enough to feel that they're willing to spend their time with that character while the character goes through trials and tribulations. Okay? So, it's not enough to say, I've written a great book. You have to demonstrate why it's a great book. As a writer, if you can elicit emotions in your readers, they will be more inclined to make a purchase. And the thing that I want to bring out here is that uh, getting to that point, we have to avoid the number one mistake book authors make with their book descriptions, and that is boring them to tears. If they land on your sales page, your Amazon sales page, or wherever your book is listed, and they're reading the pitch for your book, if at any point during that pitch they lose focus on what's being said on the page, they're gone. You lost them. You had that opportunity. You got the attention, you got the interest, but you lost them on the desire. I was watching a video last night, and it was from some people who were professional editors, and they were discussing what they look for to determine whether something is written well. And the one lady said, I can usually tell in 8 sentences. That's all I need, just 8 sentences. And I can get a feel for, one, the writing talent of the person to whom I'm reading, the strength of the story, and whether it's a story I will want to keep reading. So we have to do that inside the book, but we also have to do it in the book description. And if you fail in those first 8 sentences, and let's just suppose you just had 8 sentences in your book description. If you failed in those 8 sentences to, 1, explain to them why they want to read your book, get their interest, convince them that you are a talented writer, and that you have a great story, you're lost. They're hitting the back button. They're going to find somebody. They're going to buy a book today whether they buy yours or not. It'd be better if they bought yours, right? But they're going to buy a book today. If you let them down in your book description, they're going to buy from somebody else. So you have 8 sentences to convince them or to hook them into the story you're going to tell them. Now, you can use more than 8 sentences, but if people lose focus during those first 8 sentences, you're doomed. They're not buying your book. So we as writers, we have to step up to the challenge before us. We have to introduce people to our book. And then we have to convince them, demonstrate to them why they would want to read our books. Because if we can't convince them in the book description to click the buy button, they're not going to read your book, period. They want to know what you can do for them. You have to demonstrate to them what you will do for them within the pages of your book. So that's where I'm going to leave it today. It all comes down to, if we've gone through the effort to create a great book, the world should know about our books. So we as authors should do what is required, 1, to get their attention, and 2, to convince them why they want to read our story. We have to make them care that we've even told the story, so that they can care about our characters and care about hitting the buy button to learn more. Okay? So thank you very much. Have a great day.